Alright guys, so today I wanted to make a video going over some mods or aftermarket parts that you can buy for the Civic Si. And I know that there are people out there who have a ton of modifications to their car. They have a tune with exhaust, intake, everything. I mean, maybe even a new intercooler and things like that. I mean, you can get forged pistons for this thing. You can get a built bottom end. There's so many things you can do for this car. So I want to go over a few, starting with the more important ones or easier ones, I think, that are like the biggest bang for your buck right off the bat. And then as the video goes on, I'll get into some other modifications that are a little more expensive, and the average person probably isn't going to do them. So right off the bat, I just want to get started and say the first thing I think you should buy is a K-tuner. Now, I was torn between Honda and K-tuner just like everyone else. Which one do you go with? I ended up going with the K-tuner just because I liked being able to have a screen in my car, which was a huge plus for me, especially since I don't have an Android device. I couldn't get the app for it that was only for Android phones. And the K-tuner just gives you so much freedom to do whatever you want. You can literally set this car up however you want. So I don't run a crazy tune. I mean, I have TSP stage 1 on my car, but I'm using it in map 2. I most of the time leave it in regular mode. Sometimes just when I want to feel the acceleration, I'll put it in a map 2. But bang for your buck, spending $650 to get a K-tuner and TSP stage 1 from Two-Step Performance just really makes it the best bang for your buck. There's nothing else that's going to give you this horsepower and this change of drivability for $650. It's actually unreal. Now, the second thing that I think you should get is an air intake. When I got this car, I thought with a blow-off valve, or it's not really a blow-off valve in this car. It doesn't return the air pressure to the atmosphere. It returns it back into the intake, but I thought that this car would be a lot louder in terms of the intake, and it wasn't at all. I mean, it's louder than like a Honda Accord or something like that, but it's nowhere near sports car level or anything of that caliber. So PRL makes an intake, Mishimoto makes an intake, K&N makes an intake, and I think it's really personal preference. I went with the K&N intake, and it was really easy to install. I read the instructions a little wrong, so it took me a little bit to install, but I do have a video on unboxing the K&N intake and installing it. So I go a step-by-step process of how I did it, and it was really pretty simple, and the sound it makes is just absolutely phenomenal. So an air intake is definitely something to get. And here you can listen to the intake. It's not super crazy loud. It doesn't sound like a Lamborghini or a giant V8 muscle car or something like that, but for a Honda Civic Si, it sounds pretty good, and I really like the sound of it. So it's a real hot day today. It's about, I wouldn't say real hot, but it's about 80 degrees outside. My intake temperatures are already 113 and 93 degrees. So the intercooler is doing its job for the most part, but I've only been driving for a few minutes and my number's already climbing. And that brings me to the third modification I think you should do. So the third modification is a new intercooler, and PRL makes an intercooler, and if you live in an extremely hot climate, I think it's definitely worth getting. I live in a climate where in the summer it's quite hot, and in the winter it's quite cold, below freezing a lot of the time. So I just can't get myself to actually get a new intercooler. One, I'm in the process of moving right now, which is why you guys haven't seen a ton of videos from me lately. Just selling a house and trying to move somewhere else. So I got a lot going on, and with the pandemic ending, I'm getting back to work and everything like that. So just a lot of things going on right now, which is why you haven't seen as many videos recently as you have in the past. But I think this car would definitely benefit from an intercooler. If you have the money to get it, it's definitely worth investing in an intercooler for this car. The average person who's daily driving it is probably not gonna notice an intercooler upgrade. But if you're someone who just wants to get the most power from their car, and you've already done a K-tuner, you've already put an intake on it, I think the next best thing is to go with an intercooler. After that, you can get an exhaust for the car. And I know there's a few people on YouTube that have Civic SIs, and I've seen the exhaust they've done on their car. And there's so many exhausts out there that it's really personal preference on which one you want to get. But a nice grumble sound coming from the back of this car wouldn't be a bad thing. It also would probably help with power a little bit if you already have the K-tuner and you've tuned it to make more boost. The easier you get air in, the easier you get air out, the more horsepower you're going to make in the long run. So I think an exhaust is a good upgrade. They are kind of expensive, ranging from $700 to over $1,000 for a decent quality one. And that's something I'd like to do in the future, but I want to decide if I want to buy this car after the lease is up first, because I don't see the point in dumping $5,000–6,000 into this car just to only have it for 3 years to hand back in. That doesn't seem like a good investment on my part. It'd be nice for the 3 years, which I'd really like to have, but it just doesn't make financial sense. Which is why I've stuck with the intake and the K-tuner only. With those two things, I can pull the K-tuner out and flash this car back to stock when I go to hand it in. No money lost there because I still have the K-tuner. And I can take the intake off this car before I hand it back and put the stock one back. It will take me about an hour, and it's not the end of the world to have to do that. So that's why this car is pretty minimal. But the exhaust is definitely something I wish I could do to this car, and I really do want to add an exhaust to this car, but right now it just doesn't seem like a practical thing to do. So other upgrades for this car, I'm actually going to go into some small changes you can make to this car, and some people might call the first one a big change, but I think it's a pretty small change, are new tires for this car. This car, when you rev it, I don't know if you can hear that on camera, but there's tire squeal. Just from the 21 PSI tune. The tires on this car that come from the factory are the all seasons, not the summer tires. Since I live in a climate where it does get pretty cold in the winter, I can't run summer tires. And the tires are absolutely awful on this car. I was driving back from like Atlantic City area last week, and I hit a wall of rain. And when I mean a wall of rain, it was so bad that the radar system on this car thought the rain was a car in front of me and kept slamming on the brakes because that's how thick it was coming down in front of me. So tires on this car would definitely be a big upgrade. Some aesthetic things on this car, like the side markers in the front, would be good. I like adding stickers to the back of my car. I think it adds an aggressive look. The window tint was definitely a big plus. It makes any car look a little more aggressive, which is always nice. So those are some small changes that I'd recommend doing. If you really want to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, then you can go with a big turbo upgrade. So 27 WAN makes a big turbo upgrade for this car. And in my personal opinion, I don't understand why someone would want to really do that, or why that would appeal to the masses. Because you're taking a car that's not designed to run 30 pounds of boost, putting a giant turbo on it, so you're spending $1,500 at least to get the new turbo onto it. And And then at the same time, your transmission's gonna fail. Your clutch is gonna need to be upgraded. You're gonna have to do so many other things to it. So the big turbo kit, it's a nice that they have it for this car, but I don't think it's really gonna appeal to anyone. You may be sitting there watching this video going, yeah, that appeals to me. I wanna do that one day, and that's great. But to me, that doesn't appeal whatsoever, because I feel like all it would do is trash this engine, trash this transmission, and it just wouldn't be worth it. So those are the big upgrades I think you should get. Another upgrade I think you should get is the clutch. Now, I didn't mention this earlier for a lot of reasons, but the big one is it really depends on what you're trying to do with your car, if you need a new clutch or not. So in my car, I have plans to put a stage 1 clutch in, just something that'll handle the K-tuner and an intake, which is, in all realistic sense, not adding that much power, but just to make this car a little more bulletproof for daily driving without having a stage 2 or 3 clutch where it's really heavy and you don't want to drive this car in traffic ever and things like that. But a clutch really depends on what you're doing. I mean, I don't think of the clutch as you get a new car and you put a new clutch in it. Like, there's no point to that. There is a point to, if you're gonna make 300 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels, then yeah, you probably want to upgrade the clutch, because it's gonna go out. It's not gonna hold up to that kind of abuse. And everyone knows in this car, I'm sure if you have a 17, 18, or 19, or even a 2020 SI, that the clutch is definitely a weak point in this car. So it's not really a modification in my book to build power, but it's a modification to handle the power, which is why I didn't put it in my list. So you definitely need to, if you do anything, you're definitely going to want to change the clutch out. It just makes it so much better. But if you don't make that much power, then you don't really need to change the clutch out. I know my car, I've had 0 slip whatsoever with the K-tuner and the intake. I can run the stage 3 map if I really want, on sport mode, where it's the custom boost level of 24.5 pounds, and I have no slip. I've never had it slip. Of course, I'm pretty careful with the car and don't floor it if I'm under 3,500 RPMs. In the lower tunes, sometimes I'll floor it if I'm at 3,000 or so, but it goes from 3,000 to 3,500 so fast that I don't feel like I'm really hurting this car. I don't drive it like a race car. I drive it like a fun daily driver, and I think there's a big difference between that. So I really like this car. I think upgrading it is part of the fun of owning this car. There's no reason that for a car, not this cheap, but for parts being so cheap, especially a K-tuner where you can only get a K-tuner, and if that's the only thing you buy, you'll be so happy. I waited way too long to buy the K-tuner because I had the 2018 SI for, I don't know, just over 2 years and never had it tuned. Got the 2020 SI, was on the fence for it for about 2 months, and you know, when finally I'm gonna get it, I just gotta bite the bullet, and I am so glad I did. The freedom that that thing gives me, it's the #1 upgrade for a Civic Si. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys have done to your car. I'm open to ideas, so I just really want your guys' input. I want you to become more a part of this channel. So please give this video a like, please subscribe if you haven't already, and please request other videos for me to do. The main part of this channel is to help you guys out and give you information on what you want to know. So I have a bunch of my friends have different cars. I have a few cars in my driveway. Let me know what you guys want to see. I mean, Hondas, Fords. I even have a friend that has a Type R. So let me know what you guys want to see, and maybe I'll make a video of it if it's something that's doable in my case. Thanks for watching, guys.